Well, hey, North Park Church. It's Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we are moving along in our series, Feasting with Jesus. And as we take this theme, we are looking at Jesus's fellowship and ministry around the table in the Gospel of Luke. And today we are going to be in Luke 15, the whole chapter, which is quite a bit to bite off for one sermon, but we're going to try it anyway. So please be praying for me regarding that. Luke 15, as we recall, is the three parables of lost things. There's the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost son. Maybe lost sons, plural, but that'll come out as we look at things. So this passage does not have Jesus at a meal. In as we've seen in our past messages, but he is being identified as someone who shares table fellowship with sinners and tax collectors. And in each of these parables, Jesus he talks about that when the lost thing is found, there is rejoicing and celebration, and implicitly there is feasting that happens in the celebration. So, all right, all that to say, let's dive on in and see what we got. Okay, here's the setup. First couple verses. The setup. Now the tax collectors and sinners are all drawing near to hear Jesus. Okay. Why are they all drawing near? Because what Jesus has to say is revolutionary to their social circumstances, as outcasts, as ritually unclean, as impure, as defiled, as sinful people. They were ostracized from those who were religious, namely the Pharisees and the scribes. And so as Jesus comes and brings a message of hope to these tax collectors and sinners, it is an offer of new life for them, and it is beautiful. And so they draw near to hear this message that's coming from Jesus. However, the Pharisees and the scribes, what do? They grumbled. And this is maybe just a fascinating point here, of one of the themes. There's a theme of joy in the parables, yet the Pharisees and others grumble, and that's a point that I think I want to kind of capitalize on, because as we talk about feasting and celebration, fellowship, the beautiful kind of ministry that can happen around a table, so much of that is an overflow of joy and gratitude. It's generosity that comes from us because of the lavish generosity that God has poured forth into our lives. And so it's so we who actually know the gospel and believe it ought to be the most like joyful, generous, celebratory people on the planet. And then, the irony is that the people who believe themselves to be, God's chosen people with the Isaiah 25 banquet meal, as a promise for them, they seem to be people that are hardly ever joyful in the Gospels, and I think that's worth noting here. Now, what are the Pharisees and the scribes grumbling about? This is it. This man receives sinners and eats with them. That's the complaint. And eats with them, which kind of comes into our theme of our series, Feasting with Jesus. And for Jesus, eating with these outcasts represented, symbolized, receiving them into relationship, relationship and fellowship. This is Jesus making unclean things, people, clean through his table fellowship, which is not really about the table fellowship. It's about the message, the gospel message that Jesus proclaimed around a meal. We've been emphasizing that point, and so here we go. Now he gets into parable 1. Parable 1. Okay, lost sheep. Okay. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, highlight a keyword, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it. And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders. Next one. Rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Let me see if there's another joy. Okay. And I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. All right. So we got another lost right there. And we got a found. I found my sheep that I've lost. Okay. It's a pretty simple message. There is something that was lost. When it is found, there is a rejoicing in the finding of it, because this thing that was lost is precious. Okay? All right. Let's move on down to this next one. Parable 2. Okay. Lost coin. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin? Okay, there we go. If she loses one coin, does not light a lamp, sweep the house seeking diligently until she finds it. You got to keep consistent colors till she finds it. And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and her neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me. Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I've lost. Just so I tell you, there is more joy in heaven before the angels of God over one sinner who repents." I lost it, but now I found it. Okay. So, once again, the themes. We got something is lost. It is sought. When found, there is joy, because lost thing is precious. Okay. And so we got this up there, and we got it down there. Okay. Well, let's go and look at the longest of all of Jesus's parables. Maybe the most famous, certainly up there between probably this and Parable of the Good Samaritan. But wow, this one, I'm going to have to rein myself in from saying too much here and from this taking too much of the sermon. But this is one of the most beautiful, just absolutely beautiful passage here. So then Jesus says, let's go ahead. This we'll say. We got Parable 3. Lost sons. I thought there was only one. Well, we'll revisit that when we get to the end. Jesus said there was a man who had 2 sons. Okay, don't forget that. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me." Okay. This is a horrible statement. This is really awful. Let's go updated language to communicate the message. Is this: Dad, I wish you were dead so I could get my money for my inheritance. Because no banks, not like we have them today, that's for sure. And retirement wasn't bound up in stocks and bonds. Your worth, your equity was in your land, in precious heirlooms, and it was in a lot of these other non-money property, and so for the son to get his share of the inheritance, number one, you don't get that till dad dies, but he says, I want it now. I don't want to wait that long. And we see ultimately there's no value in the relationship between the son and his father. The son has no value in his father and the relationship. He just wants his inheritance that's coming to him. And so here's the crazy part. Oh. And he divided his property between them. This is crazy. This would have been ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous to the Pharisees and the scribes that would have been listening, because here's what should have happened. The father should have beat his son for making such a comment and driven him out of the house and shamed him probably publicly for such a comment. What does the father here do? The father actually divides up the property. Would have sold land, would have sold heirlooms. Well, at least the son ends up doing that, because you can't take land with you off to a far off journey. And so if the father gives the son a portion of the land, he turned around and sold it in order to get the cash, so to speak, to go off to this far off country that he ends up squandering all the money at. That the father gives in here is really significant, but also don't miss this either. The older son got his cut too. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. If I can maybe just cut down at the end here, just to make the point. You never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. You never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. Older brother, he gave you your share of the property. he gave it to you before he died. And goodness, wow, how we can, goodness, be so nearsighted sometimes. We're not too different from the older brother. No, we're not. But he's the easy guy to target in this passage. Well, not many days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and took a journey into a far-off country. Here's the code language. Into a far country. Code language. Pagan land. Non-Yahweh worshippers. Non-Yahweh worship. So he's going to a pagan place, an unclean place. We see it that he ends up in the field feeding pigs. Unclean animals. Okay, so this is just really like he is. Jesus is painting this situation as bleak as you can make it. I think because of our familiarity with this passage, and because we just live in a vastly different culture, I think that this story doesn't land as harshly and as severely as it would have landed on Jesus's initial listeners. But this is jarring. This is shocking. This is appalling. This is gasp-worthy scenario that's being painted right here. The son squanders. He squanders all of it. Squanders the property. And reckless living. We know from the older brother later on at the end of the story that he squanders it with prostitutes and partying. That's what he was doing. When he had spent everything, all of it, he spent everything. A severe famine arose in that country. He began to be in need. So he hires himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the field to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate. No one gave him anything. This is as rock bottom as Jesus could possibly communicate. Here's maybe just a little bit of an interesting thought here is, I think this is I think this is gonna work itself out in the sermon. I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit more, but the Son is seeking joy just in all the wrong ways. He's looking to rejoice. He goes to this far off country. He doesn't have to uphold Dad's morals. Doesn't have to honor Dad's religion. Doesn't have to abide by the societal constraints that he doesn't want to be bound to. He wants to have cash, and he wants to go spend it on whatever he wants and desires. Whatever his flesh craves, he wants it. And he thinks that that's going to give him happiness, that that's going to give him joy. And look at what it ends up with. It ends up with him being rock bottom. This is what it leads to. When we seek joy and rejoicing apart from the Father, and we seek it in the things of this world, it only leads to spiritual devastation, and oftentimes that translates into devastation in other parts of life as well. And we find out that what we thought could give us meaning and give us pleasure and give us satisfaction, we come to find out that it was all a ruse, and we've been duped, and there's, we find out that it couldn't deliver on what we thought it could deliver. The more I talk about that, that's 100% going to be part of the sermon. Okay. But when he came to himself, it was beautiful. When he came to himself, he finally is thinking rightly. He says, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger?" So this father is very wealthy. You had the servants that kind of lived on your property, but then you would have the hired hands. They were day laborers. You would have just said, it's busy season, harvest season, whatever. We're gonna need some extra help. You go into town, you find some guys looking for some looking to get paid to work for a day, and you just go, you take however many you need, give them the day's wages, and so be it. But look at this. What do his hired servants have? Do they have enough bread? No. They have more than enough bread. See the generousness, the generosity of the Father here. He is generous and kind to the hired servants. But I perish here with hunger. I will arise, I will go to my father, and I will say to him, don't miss this. This is huge. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And so he arose, came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion. Goodness, is that not just like one of the sweetest images depicting the nature and character of our God, our Father in heaven? The Father saw him. It means he was looking. And felt compassion. which means he still loved his son. He was looking, he still loved his son. And he ran. Rich men don't run in ancient Near Eastern culture. They don't do it as undignified. It would have been shameful. And he embraced him, which means that there's welcome, not condemnation. All of this is just crazy. And he kissed him. Goodness, this is beautiful. What happens here is the Father takes on shame so the Son won't have to. In this culture, in this sort of a village that this story would have been situated in, everybody would have known the Son. Everybody would have known what he had done, and it would have been a communal disciplining of spitting upon him, saying awful things to him, potentially even taking blows at him, because he didn't just dishonor his father, he dishonored his people and dishonored the village. And so as the father runs out to greet him, he takes on shame as he runs, because you got to hike up your tunic to run and show leg, and goodness, that's near forbidden. And he, as he embraces him, he communicates to the entire village, I receive my son back, and I do not subject him to punishment for what he's done. It's one of the most beautiful portraits of grace, period. Now, look at this. And the son says to him, remember, he said, I will, let me get a different color here. I will say to him, here's the plan. And the son said to him, here's what comes out of his mouth. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Notice what's missing. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. Against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the Father said, look at what doesn't come out. Not here. The Son recognizes he is getting grace. He will not have to pay back his father. It's forgiven. And so the father says, goodness, that's just beautiful. Father says to the servants, bring quickly the best robe, put it on him. Put a ring on his hand. This would have been the signet ring, which was the that you would have taken your ring and dipped it in ink, and then you would have put it on a document. And so this kind of signet ring is authority. Put shoes on his feet, dignity. Yeah. Best robe, honor. All of this is being given to the Son. He's being restored to proper sonship. And he is being differentiated in this from the true servants who work for the Father or receive payment from him. No, he is not like them. He is a son. And then it says, here we go. Bring the fattened calf, kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. For this my son is dead, he is alive again. He was lost, and he is found. And they began to celebrate. Love it. Celebrate. He was lost, but now he's found. And so, what did we say up above when we were looking at the lost sheep and lost coin? Lost things are celebrated when found, because they are valuable and beloved by the one seeking. Yeah, that's good. Boy, I love this. Well, we'll just kind of wrap up kind of more quickly here, but the older son was in the field. He drew near to the house, and what's he hear? He hears a party, music and dancing. The stakes are out, and this is something that's worth noting is the celebration is community wide. The father and the son don't have a nice dinner together. He invites the whole village. Gets the we'll talk about it more in the sermon, I'm sure, of the fattened calf. You would have had one kind of prized fattened calf that would have been for just the biggest occasion. Honestly, probably would have been reserved for the older brother's wedding when that would happen. And but no, because the son was dead, he's alive again. He's alive, and so this is cause for the highest level of feasting, celebrating, rejoicing, dancing, and music. And this is a good party. This father throws a awesome party, and we should make note of it. And so older brother comes. He called to the servants, asked what these things meant. He said, "Your brother's come. Your father's killed the fattened calf because he's received him back safe and sound. Shalom." But the older brother was angry, refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him and answered. He answered his father, Look, these many years I've served you and never disobeyed your command, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. Don't miss it. Older brother is as devoid of a relationship as his younger brother was. Sure, he cleaned up his act. Yeah, sure, he still worked. He didn't wear his sin as overtly as his younger brother, no doubt about it. But look at who he wants to celebrate with. He wants to celebrate with his friends. He's looking for celebration apart from the Father. And what's that lead to? Goodness, I need to write this down for sure, because this is gonna preach. Older brother is looking to celebrate apart from his father, and that leads to angry, missing out on joy, he goes on to say, but when the son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, okay, yeah. So this is, I think there's a really, really key point here that's coming out, is both the older brother and the younger brother were both looking for joy, looking for celebration apart from the father, who is God in this parable. And it leads to squandering, anger. It leads to a joyless life. But the father continues to keep the invitation out there so graciously. And he says, son, you're always with me. All this mine is yours. It is fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother is dead and is alive. He was lost and he is found. And the invitation stays out there. The story ends, and this is one of the best. This has been one to even to unbelievers. This is one of the most profound stories, period, in history, because how's the story end? Doesn't give us. Does the older brother go up and party? Say, Dad, you're right. All right, thanks. I was a little off there. Does the older brother refuse to go in and storm off? What happens? And that's the brilliance of the story. The brilliance of the story is that Jesus leaves the ending open, because each one of his hearers will make the decision on how they will respond to the offer that's just been extended. Will you come participate in my joy? Will you come rejoice? Or not? Will you come be a part of my celebration? Will you come into relationship with me, into fellowship with me, and find real joy? Or will you refuse it? That's the question that's extended out there for the tax collectors and the sinners, for the Pharisees and the scribes, and it's the one that's out there for us too. And we have to find ourselves in the story, because the story is for us, and the way we finish this story makes all the difference for eternity. So we'll end up there. And we'll see how this turns into a sermon for Sunday. But I think I've got a lot of thoughts going on right now, and I'm really excited for this. So I love you, church, and I will see you in a few days.